Day 7996. It'd been exactly 2 weeks since the incident. There was tension in the air, occasional altercations or arguments, but not a single sign of those nightmarish entities. The world outside the door was completely silent. The cries coming from the atrium had abruptly stopped in the middle of that first sleepless night. Since then, our hopelessness had fused with that night's panic, and together they perverted into a primal paranoia hidden behind our collective silence. We mostly kept to ourselves, too afraid to find out who'd made it and who hadn't. Nobody was truly safe in Colorado Mesa. Not anymore. I didn't notice it at first, but my condition was getting worse. Today, the pain was unbearable. It felt like my entire midsection was going to burst. By the time I'd lumbered down the crowded concrete hallway to the locker rooms, I didn't even have the strength to walk to the restroom. I collapsed on the cool floor tiles underneath the shower, sweating feverishly, and lay there for a couple of minutes. Once I'd built up enough willpower, I turned on the shower head and let the frigid water rain onto me, soaking my clothing. In the previous days, I hadn't even had stool, just pure stomach acid. Now I felt a similar burning. I tried to numb myself to it by focusing on the water. When that didn't work, I dug my overgrown fingernails into my arms until I could feel the skin break under the pressure. I froze. Something had shifted inside of me. It felt like an air pocket had formed at the top of my digestive tract, like something had just slithered down a little and freed up the space. I felt it again, a small tug from the inside. Then again. It seemed to happen with more force each time, each one getting more painful than the last. It felt like something was trying to pull out my intestines. I rolled onto my side under the shower's deluge, focusing on the little raindrops of shower water pooling up on the drain, on the miniature waterfalls they formed at the edges of each hole in the grate. I let my starry, labored vision drift in too, staring indifferently out the windows in my light-headed skull. Just as I thought it was over, I felt something outside my body, resting across the inside of my thigh. It felt like a tail. I didn't notice at first, but whatever it was moving, trying to wriggle its way back in. I grabbed onto the twitching rope and pulled as hard as I could. There was resistance. It felt like it was trying to maneuver its way back inside. But no matter how much it hurt, no matter how loudly I sulked from the pain, I couldn't loosen my grip. I needed to get it out of me. When I had enough length, I wrapped the end of it around my hand and wrist like a leash. I didn't dare to see what it looked like. I just kept pulling. "Get out!" I remember yelling. I was writhing on the soaked floor of the empty locker room. "Get out of me!" I don't know how many times I said it, nor how many times I repeated any of the other things I babbled to get myself through, but it didn't matter. If anybody even heard me, they weren't coming to help. Something inside loosened violently. Everything in my abdomen felt this sudden, awful relief. It was finally out, wriggling in my hands. I held it at arm's length. A squirming, eyeless serpent, at least 10 feet long. The parasite was unusually heavy, its flesh still flexible, but dense like a sandbag. I could feel the difference in my own weight now that it was out. I threw it across the room. The moment it hit the floor, it started to pulsate and stretch, coiling up and expanding and warping its form. I pulled up my pants and slowly made it to my feet in the terrible, freezing rain of the shower. Leaning my tired back against the steel wall, not once taking my eyes off what was happening at the other end of the room. The organic mush was sculpting itself, shaping into an emaciated bipedal form, curled in a fetal position. By the time I was standing without the wall support, the parasite had completely transformed into a translucent, skinned, faceless being with a wide mouth full of teeth. It rose to its unsteady feet, dislocating and readjusting its bones along the way like it was pitching a tent. Its face reminded me of that forgotten nightmare from so long ago, that faceless face that had forced my head underwater and choked me out. The limping figure approached me with its twisted, freshly born body. It towered over me, at least a head taller than me, but it appeared frail, constructed from no more matter than its dense, fleshed serpent form had been packed with. Its condition didn't seem to give it any pause, though. It kept its pace confidently, relishing my fear. "What are you? What the hell are you?" Its wicked phalanges hung beside either hip. The only sounds that came from its stiff, lipless grin that spanned from earhole to earhole were the wheezing gasps of freshly grown lungs. When it spoke, its voice seemed to come from inside my head, overlapping with the guttural panting and moaning of its physical form. It was different from the one I'd heard before. This one sounded female. "You really shouldn't have done that, Morgan. It's too much too early for me to be out and about. Look at me. I'm a mess." I tried backing away, but I was trapped in the shower stall. "It's a shame, really. I was gonna give you a few more days. Be a dear and make this easy for me. Don't struggle." It got as close to me as it could, wheezing inches from my face. It should have smelled like bile or feces or some other disgusting thing from inside my body. but it didn't. It emanated a hypnotic, light-headed scent that made me feel like blood was rushing to my head. I could see the hairline veins that pulsated under its cloudy, unpigmented skin, like maroon spiderwebs, their channels distorted and warped by the droplets of water from the shower. Slowly, almost sensually, it reached out and touched my face with a single bare-bone fingertip, its delicate red muscles smoothly guiding it across my skin. Such a lovely pelt you have. Soft, flexible, tender. It gulped another helping of air, flicking its snake tongue out to tidily wipe saliva from the lipless edge of its maw. Meanwhile, its hand hovered past my shoulder, daring me to try and avoid its impending grip. I soon found myself in its firm embrace, unable to escape, even if I'd had any will to struggle left. I felt its finger dig painfully into my skin, drawing a thin drop of blood from my temple, quickly rinsed away by the shower. I can make this very quick, Mr. Elliot, but only if you let me. Never would I have expected to be so tempted by that offer. I just wanted all of this to be over. To not have to wake up on the floor of a glorified basement every day, eat one MRE and then sit around being afraid until I fall asleep, just to do the same thing the next day. I couldn't make a routine out of that. It was repetition. It was insanity. It was hell. So for just a few seconds, I wondered if that would really be so bad. To just be snuffed out right there in that disgusting, terrifying, comforting, warm embrace. Oh, Morgan, there's no shame in escape. There's nothing left for your kind here. Only pain. My head buzzed with a relaxing numbness. The sound of its unsettling breathing seemed to fade away. I forgot its teeth and its veins and its claws and what it had just done to me. I forgot the pain its finger was causing me, digging into my skin and slowly working down my cheek. I forgot who I was and what was happening, and became lost in an eyeless pair of eyes, invisible eyes that could see more than just light. She was otherworldly. She was beautiful. She was liberation. She wanted to help me, and unlike anybody else in this mountain, she actually could. She was hope. No matter how much I tried to fool myself into believing that this was something I wanted, I knew I was standing in the coils of a snake, not some angel of death. I didn't see her beautiful alien eyes anymore. I saw its teeth and its veins and its translucent hide. I smelled that intoxicating, frightening aroma of blood-filled lightheadedness, heard that raspy breathing so close to my face, felt the pain in the deep cut it'd been carving down my cheek that whole time, and the hot, trickling blood it was painting my neck with. "I'm sorry," I said, "but I don't want to die."
"Few want to die, Morgan, but they all do, eventually."
It tightened its hold and dug its fingertip deeper, leaving a trail of stinging pain down the side of my neck, then put its head over my shoulder like it was trying to whisper in my ear, even though it wasn't speaking with its mouth, only panting.
"And that is where I come in."
Outside the door, through the veil of watery white noise from the shower, I could hear gunshots. Just a couple at first, then long, uncontrolled bursts of automatic fire. I had no idea where I wanted to be now. I was terrified of going out there, but I knew I wouldn't last long in here either.
"I was really hoping to have some fun with this. Maybe avoid having to repair your pelt. But this is taking too long. Goodbye, Morgan."
In a single swipe, its fingertip made a long, skin-deep slash down the side of my chest with somehow surgical precision. When it raised its hand to make another, I used my free hand to shove it, stumbling back. Without hesitation, I ran away, then stopped at the door. Gunfire was still going on past it. I could hear screeching just like the entities from that horrible red night. Ricochet sang along with the chaos outside. Behind me, that parasite was getting to its trembling bony feet. Adrenaline coursed through my leaking veins. I couldn't keep up with my racing thoughts.
"Get back here."
I took in the room around me, trying to find an exit to somewhere other than the main annex, something I was already certain didn't exist. Then, amidst the gray concrete and silver steel and white tiles, my eyes ran across something cherry red. A fire extinguisher just past my attacker. Without thinking, I bolted for it, still holding on to the long breach in my skin. For all I knew, I was already bleeding to death. Just when my fingers brushed the cold metal of the fire extinguisher, I felt my unsteady feet give out over the wet tiles, sending my face first into the wall as I clawed helplessly at my vibrant last hope. I was on the floor now, my head in a throbbing daze. The extinguisher was lying next to me out of my arm's reach. By the time I'd regained my bearings, the parasite had reached me. It was straddling me, holding my chest down with one handful of talons and preparing to make its next incision with the other. I grabbed it by the wrist before it could dig its bony fingers into me, but it pressed harder. Its arm got thicker and darker and heavier, while the rest of its body shrunk and became more translucent. Its mind laughed hysterically at my struggling, while its body moaned.
"I didn't expect such tenacity from you. Go on, fight, Morgan. I'll work for your skin if I must."
I didn't know how much time I had left, only that trying to hold the arm off was a losing battle. The muscles in its pulsed and blackened, but the rest of the body was almost transparent now. I stopped reaching for the extinguisher and threw my fist into its side. Brittle bones crunched under my knuckles like carrots. The mass and its body relaxed back into an even ground state, and it fell to the floor. I got to my feet and backed away from the wheezing figure below. A maroon stain spread through its pigmentless skin, growing like a drop of ink on paper. It whined like a dying animal, but the voice it projected was calm and empty.
You've hurt me. Very badly, it appears. God damn it. I should have just hid.
I didn't want to hurt you, I sobbed. It crawled toward me, twisted and damaged, smearing its human blood across the floor.
Then don't.
I could already feel its embrace again, its comforting, warm, deceitful touch. It was disgusting. No, it was beautiful. Oh, but it was so disgusting. I grabbed the extinguisher, clenched my eyes shut, and hammered it into the writhing parasite. It didn't die the way I'd hoped. It was slow, every second force-fed to me. Please, I choked. Please just die! Again and again and again, until I didn't have the energy or the heart to do it anymore. The horrible screams surrendered to whimpers, then to heavy breathing, then to nothing at all. The only sound left was its thoughts.
We don't want to die either.
I crumpled to the wet floor and rested on my back, breathing arrhythmically, with a drain under my head like a cold brass pillow on a ceramic tile mattress. The bloodied metal cylinder rolled out of my hand. I may never know if what I killed was human, but whatever it was a person, and that made me a murderer. The slash in my side was still bleeding. The turmoil outside the door was still raging. The shower was still raining, and somehow, against all odds, my heart was still beating. As the world around me faded, I marveled sadly at the lengths I'd gone to survive. She was right. I didn't want to die, but living here scared me even more. Hello, listeners. Thank you for checking out tonight's creepypasta, Synthetic Skies, Part 4. I would like to thank the original author, Pyrous, for allowing me to narrate the story. Stay tuned for Part 5 and 6 coming up in the following weeks. If you have enjoyed my narration and would like to send me a story to be featured in a future episode, please send it over to my email. Do not forget to subscribe and click the notification bell to keep up with future content. Thanks again for listening, and as always, I am your host, Marie Lives the Horror.